Batter up.
Well, gang Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. And why MLB is the place to be. Bob and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stats and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of MLB Talk with your hosts Rob and Chris as we cover the Yankees and the Mets and all of Major League Baseball. And today we have a special guest, our good friend, huge Mets fan, Mr. Justin Gianelli. What's going on?
Chris, Rob, how we doing?
What's happening?
How you doing, Justin? How's everything been? We haven't seen you since our Sports Wire days or night.
Yeah, that's true. It's been a minute, as they say. It's been quite a while. I've been doing pretty good.
Good. I know you.
And
I know you have a lot to talk.
Before we start, I'm sorry, Rob.
Go ahead, Chris.
Congratulations, right? You got married since the last time we've seen you.
Yes,
It's been a while.
Oh yeah, congrats. That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you want. We're going to get into the Mets, but Chris is going to start us off with the postseason. You know, we want to get your opinions and everything. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are your thoughts so far? Let's start in the National League. Mets, Phillies, and Dodgers. What'd you think of that first game so far?
Kind of just shows you who the better team truly is. I mean, I know they got the Phillies got to Ohtani pretty early, but you saw kind of how he settled down, and he gave the Dodgers 6 innings, 3 runs, and you know that's kind of the formula opposite of how they handled 2024. The Dodgers have to rely on their starting pitching this year. You know, with Snell and Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glasnow, like those are going to be the guys that they rely on to go deep into games. You know, last year it felt like every 2 or 3 games they were running a bullpen game, right? And that was because Glasnow was hurt. They didn't have Snell last year. They did have Yamamoto. Ohtani couldn't pitch last year because of the surgery. So, you know, they were just down in the rotation. They just didn't have enough bodies to give them length. So it felt like they're relying on their bullpen. And this year, they're coming in with one of the worst bullpens in baseball. Yeah. But, you know, Dave Roberts was able to kind of avoid that in game 1, save for Vesia getting those outs in the 8th to get out of the Glasnow jam. But, you know, he tried staying away from his bullpen as much as possible, and it kind of worked with Sasaki getting the save in game 1. And for Philly, it's kind of a mirror of last year a little bit. You know, you just don't trust their bullpen enough. You know, they started to get Sanchez in the 6th inning that knocked them out of the game, and you know, all hell breaks loose when the Phillies take their starters out, and they don't hit enough in the postseason either.
Yeah, so. Totally agree. And you know what? I think they got a new weapon out of their bullpen now with Sasaki. I don't think anybody was counting on him. Right, especially being hurt for most of the season.
Right.
And before that, he wasn't that good. But look at him now. I mean, this guy's throwing, you know, about 100 miles an hour and coming out of the bullpen for an inning.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really had much expectations on what they thought Sasaki would be as a weapon to them in the postseason. And clearly, it's an extra bullpen arm when they're in dire need of good bullpen arms because they just don't have that right now. Yeah. Trinan struggled. Tanner Scott's been an absolute disaster this year. Kirby Yates has been another bad signing. Mm-hmm. So their bullpen's an absolute mess. Vesia has been off and on this year. They need guys to get 27 outs, and they really need those starters to go deep into games to kind of limit how many times Dave has to go to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And Chris, I just wanted to say one thing. Like the Phillies, again, to me, the Phillies, like you said, Justin, the Phillies are starting to look like what happened even though it was one game. What happened last year? To me, the Phillies look old and tired in the postseason. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, they're kind of like the Yankees, right? They got a heavy lineup, but these guys are also. A lot of them are all or nothing batters, right? Like Schwarber, Harper, that goes back to where the Yankees are too. Like sometimes you got to play. You hate to call it small ball, but sometimes that's what it takes, especially in the playoffs. But you do have to hit home runs in the playoffs, as we see with the Yankee-Toronto series, right? Toronto's hitting bombs, and guess what? They're up 2-0. So, but yeah, no, I agree. They're all like 30-ish, right? They're all at that age, but again, they all have to get it done, and so far they haven't gotten done. It's only one game. We'll see what happens tonight. And playing at home, you guys know that in Philly is so tough, and for the Dodgers to steal a game in Philly, I think that's huge, right? Because now they get back to LA at worst 1-1, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and Joe Dell, I cannot put up the comment that you made about the Phillies, so we got it. Hello, Maria. Hello, Joe. Hello, Anthony. How's everything going today? All right, let's go to Cubs Brewers, Chris, and then we're going to get to the
I'm trying to avoid getting to the Yankee-Toronto series as much as possible, but we'll have to do it. But anyway, what about the Cubs and the Brewers? I mean, Brewers won 9-3 the first game. Any surprises there? Well, what do you think's going on there?
I think it was a little surprising that they jumped on the Cubs so quickly. The Cubs decided to start Boyd on short rest, which I thought was also a curious decision as well. But the Cubs, I think, kind of got lucky by beating San Diego. I thought San Diego was going to be the better team and win that wild card series, and the Padres just didn't hit enough. And the Cubs, I think, scored 3 runs in each game, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't score a ton of runs in that wild card series, and it's going to show up again against a very good Brewer lineup that's pretty consistent with putting the ball in play. And they're a team that don't strike out a lot. They've got a good pitching staff. You saw Peralta pitch well in game 1, and they throw good arms at you, and it's hard to score runs against them. And I think it's kind of an uphill battle for the Cubs.
I agree. I'm with you with the San Diego thing. I thought for sure San Diego would be going to the next round too. I was a little surprised at that, but then again, when you look at the Padres, that's another team. After the top part of the lineup, the second part of the lineup, the bottom half is
very inconsistent.
At best, right? So if those top guys don't get it done, it's not going to happen for them. They got great pitching, and hopefully you guys will be in on a couple of their starters this offseason, giving a little bit of a hint before we get into the Mets a little bit later on. But Rob, what are your thoughts on the Cubs and Brewers series?
You know what? Anything could happen at Wrigley Field, right? This next game, who knows? Wrigley is crazy. Even though, they made a good point about it on one of the broadcasts. The building, they put up buildings, so it sort of changed the pattern of the wind for Wrigley Field, and that changed part of the game. Those buildings block some of, if you remember Wrigley, sometimes those balls were going out constantly. So these buildings sort of mess that up a little, but anything still could happen at Wrigley Field. I don't know. For some reason, there's just something about the Brewers I like. And I think the Brewers were the best team in the National League this year. Let's face it.
Yes, they were.
Okay. And I think the Brewers are going to take it, but you never know. You never know with the Cubs. Crow Armstrong, another great Met trade, by the way. If he gets hot in the playoffs, because he did cool down a little towards the end of the season.
Cool down, being nice about it. He fell off the cliff in the second half.
He did. But if he gets hot, because, then that could change the dynamics. But I think the Brewers are going to take that series. All right. Go ahead, Justin.
I just don't see where the Cubs are winning a game in Milwaukee. That's where it comes in. Listen, they could conceivably win both games at Wrigley Field. But I don't see them being able to take a game in Milwaukee. And that's the trouble they're going to run into.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's real quick get to the Seattle Detroit series, because we got a lot to talk about with the Yankees and then the Mets. So, Justin, what do you think about Seattle and Detroit?
You want to talk about the best freaking series in baseball? I think that's what we got. You had game one go to extras and Detroit pull it out, and then you had the Mariners in game two getting a late run in the eighth inning to take the win 3-2. You talk about a great series. I mean, the Mariners being able to claw even on a game where Skubal pitched. I mean, that's about as clutch as it gets. Not feeling too down about themselves about the 11-inning loss in game one. They bounced right back. They got the 2 quick runs off Skubal, but then the Tigers tied it in the eighth, and the Mariners didn't sweat it. They scored the go-ahead run in the bottom of the eighth, and they're pitching as well. They're a staff that can go deep because they're a team that can go deep because of their staff. And if you're Detroit, usually you would say you're happy going back to your home ballpark 1-1, but I kind of feel like it's a missed opportunity for Detroit to not put the hammer down and go up 2-0, just because behind Tarek Skubal, there's not a whole heck of a lot in their rotation. They've kind of had to piece together their pitching staff throughout the year and make things interesting. If I'm not mistaken, I think Jack Flaherty might be going tomorrow in game 3. That's going to be it's going to be interesting. Actually, there's Flaherty against Logan Gilbert in game 3. And that could be a real toss up, because Flaherty's had a decent year, but he's been a little inconsistent at times.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's been a great series so far. I mean, the first 2 games are
well pitched both ways.
Yeah, pitched. And Sal, going back to before, I agree with you. I think it's going to be Brewers Dodgers. That's what I think. But all right, Chris.
Phillies, just getting back with the Dodgers and the Phillies, it should be the Dodgers Brewers. It looks that way. But the Phillies, we've also seen, are very streaky, right? Especially this year. We've seen them. So they could get going, especially at home. If they get on a hot streak going into LA, like if they win game 2 and get their bats going and then going into LA, what? Maybe they can make it a series, but now,
I think it's a relatively even series. It's definitely not to the level of Cubs Brewers, where I think it's a little more lopsided. But I just think that it's hard to trust Philadelphia in the postseason. I know they made that run to the World Series in 2022. Other than that, it's been a relative long list of disappointments. Whether it was losing to Arizona in the 23 LCS or bowing out to the Mets in the LDS last year. They've had their fair share of disappointments, that's for sure.
Definitely. All right, let's get to it, Chris.
We don't have to. We
Save it for
really
last.
don't have to talk about this. But
we have to talk about it. All right, Chris, I'm going to start. Yankees, Toronto. What is going on? Toronto looks like a team on a mission, Chris. What's going on?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, offensively, they're just destroying us on their side. Pitching, obviously, we've seen what Savage did yesterday. This kid comes out of nowhere, making it his 4th or 5th start. No hitter through almost 6 innings. And I thought, to be honest, if we could take one game, it would have been game 2, right? Because you figure the kid is pitching. All right, how good is this guy going to pitch? We could probably steal that game. Obviously not. The one question mark from yesterday, for me at least, was when they brought in Will Warren. Like, to me, Will Warren, number one, should not have gone in at that point, right? In the middle of an inning, no outs, 1st and 2nd. That was, for me, that was a horrible move there. They should have brought in one of their high leverage relievers to kind of, get out of that inning, without it becoming what it became, right? Bring in Cruz or bring in whoever and try to, minimize the, the runs there, maybe give up one more run. But bringing in Warren, I think it was 1st and 2nd, nobody out, and the top of the batting order coming up. I mean, that's, and Warren had one of his worst outings during the season in Toronto, where Toronto just, hit, I think he eight runs off of him, a couple of home runs, whatever. So for me, that was either way, they probably lose, right? Cruz probably comes in, they probably crush him too, but that's my only issue there. Otherwise, yeah, they just got killed offensively. Thank God they scored a few runs there at the end to make it somewhat respectable or more respectable than what it was. But hopefully they could carry that offense into these next two games or next game, obviously, right? They got to win this game 3, and hopefully Rodon steps up. I think they will. I think they're going to answer the bell in game 3 and game 4. Unfortunately, though, game 5 is going to be back in Toronto, where it's been a house of horrors this year. I think they got 1 win in, 9 games now? Or
now it's 9. Yeah, they were 1-6 in the regular season, and now they're 1-8 after the 2 postseason games.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I mean, that's
Chris, before we get to that, why don't you answer the question from Pensman Sports?
Who would they bring in? Listen, who would they bring in
that situation alone? First and second, nobody out. Boone pulls Fried out of the game.
Yeah, it was already.
Who else are you bringing in besides Will Warren?
I think it was 4-0 or 5-0 already.
It was 5 at the time.
Yeah,
I like I said, I think I would have brought in one of my high leverage guys, whether it was Fernando Cruz. Luke Weaver hasn't gotten a guy out, so I don't know if I would have brought him in, but I think Fernando Cruz would have been perfect in that situation. Especially that's the other one. Like the top of the batting order was coming up. You knew Guerrero was coming up, right, in a couple of spots. So I would have brought in one of those guys, whether it was Cruz or I don't know if I would have brought in Williams. That's way too early for him. But for me, I think Cruz would, and I think they were warming him up too just before that. So I think I would have got him up and brought him in.
But the question is though, was it really too early for Devin Williams? Because I listen, in the postseason, you need to manage with urgency.
Right.
You know, you need to manage with urgency. You're down 5-0 in game 2 in a best of 5. Mm-hmm. You're on the verge of being down to the brink of elimination if you lose the game.
Right.
And you choose to light it on fire.
Yeah, Duvall's another option.
You could have had Duvall in the bullpen as well.
Either one. I'm not
Duvall
against either one.
Williams, you got to go to your number. Even if it's the 4th or 5th inning, you got to bring your number 1 guy in just because it's like I got to keep it at 5. I have no choice.
Right.
Like I believe my bat's gonna wake up. Guess what? They ended up waking up.
When
it was
anybody
all
but
out of reach.
But my thing was anybody but Warren would have been good in that situation.
I mean that's also fair.
Yeah, I just didn't like Warren.
Chris Weaver would have scared me a little too, though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because before he got an out later on in that game, he had gotten a guy out yet in the playoffs. So I would not trust Weaver. Yeah, he's the one guy. Him and Warren, I would have stayed away from. But one of those two guys definitely would have been, I think, a better option just because they're relievers. They're more used to those kind of situations. Warren he's a rookie. This guy, first of all, he made 30-something starts that he shouldn't have made this year. He's only there because of Cole getting hurt, and Hill getting hurt early in the season. So he's only there because, we were down in the starters. Otherwise, he probably would have came up later on in the season. So I just think that it was a bad spot for him. But either way,
And now you're dealing with Vlad Jr. over there that all of a sudden woke up and he's hot. Right, Justin? What do you think so far? What you've seen from him the first 2 games?
Guerrero's on a different planet right now, and it's just like it's like wild. Like everything looks like a beach ball when it's coming to him at the plate, and he's not missing a single pitch. And it almost felt like that grand slam was just going to happen. Like when he came up with the bases loaded, you just felt like he was going to hit a grand slam because he had been so hot to start the series.
Was a shot. That was a shot.
It was.
It was right over the plate, that pitch, too. I mean, it was a little inside, but otherwise it was
he was quick. Right. He was quick to it, and he made no mistake about it. I mean, to me, that this series has just felt like a massive mismatch.
Yep.
Right.
But Varshaw's going nuts, too.
Dalton Varsho, too. Yeah. I mean, they're up and down the lineup.
Ugh.
And guess what? Noted. Yeah, it was late in the game, but noted Yankee killer George Springer made his mark finally. So watch out for that in game 3.
Yeah, he hit a home run. Listen, we see what happened once the Blue Jays signed Vlad. Everything changed, right? it just, I think signing him to that contract, I think it just set the tone for Toronto for the season. And now, I mean, I knew Toronto, the Yankees had problems against Toronto in Toronto, but I didn't think the first two games were going to be like this. No. I mean, it was just like batting practice.
Game one, they made things they made life very easy on Kevin Gausman, right? And Kevin Gausman was just mowing down the Yankees. Yeah. They got a couple runs. The Jays got a couple runs early, but they weren't really doing much offensively. Then later in the game, they ended up tacking on big time in the 7th and 8th, and it became a blowout. But it almost just feels like the Yankees aren't ready for the big spotlight. And, they got by Boston, but I think they're kind of fortunate to get by Boston. The Red Sox lineup, has really been lacking since Roman Anthony went down.
Yeah.
And you never felt like there were too many big threats in that lineup. So you were never really worried about the Red Sox scoring a ton of runs, right?
Yeah.
And once they were able to, Max Fried did pitch great against the Red Sox, only to be outdone by what's the guy's name? Crochet in game one.
Yeah.
But once game 2 and game 3 came around, Yankees didn't have to do a ton offensively, just get enough big hits where you get to Boston's bullpen, and you took care of a team that wasn't going to do much this year. If Boston got by the Yankees, I mean, the same thing would have happened to.
I think so.
With Toronto. Toronto right now feels like they're on a different level, and like you said, Rob, I think a weight was lifted when Guerrero signed that contract. I think for an entire franchise, and I think now it's full go, and they may as well be the favorites in the American League to get to the World Series right now.
I think there was a cloud early on in the season, because all you heard was about the extension for Guerrero. Are they going to keep him? Are they going to, should they trade him now if they can't sign him, right? So that was going around. And once, like you said, once they signed it, it was like, oh, okay, we got a guy now, right? So now we're just, right, everything is smooth now. So I think that's when they started playing better. And right now they're playing great. I mean, I don't think their starting pitching is that impressive, right? Because Savage has pitched great. Gausman is solid, but other than that, I mean, who are you really putting up there as a right?
Right. No, I agree with you. And yes, the Yankees are also beating themselves.
And I think Hoffman's got the most blown saves in the season this year.
But I think the one thing the Jays also have going for them, and you'll see him in game 3, is that Shane Bieber's starting to return to form.
Yeah,
Shane Bieber's pitched really well towards the end of the year, and obviously he was dealing with his injuries, but he's finally back to kind of pre-injury, and you're starting to see that pay off. I mean, it paid off. It paid off to the point where they were. I know he's done at the end of his career, but they left Scherzer off the roster, right? If they were that desperate, they would have left him on the roster as a starting option, and they didn't.
Yeah, that's true. But Chris, Fried looked shell-shocked, right? I mean,
that was the worst I've seen him all year, basically, right? He was great in the first half. He had a couple of bad starts after the All-Star break, but then he just got back into a nice groove and finished with the most wins, right? 19 wins this season. He looked great. And I'd seen some people making comments, now they're starting to throw around the Blue Jays are cheating, they're tipping or whatever. They're
the usual
pitches with the Yankees or something. The Yankees are tipping their pitches. I don't know. I listen, if the Yankees are tipping their pitches, then it's on them. It's not on if it's it's bad on the Yankees, right? If you're tipping your pitches to the other team, then it's on you. It's not on the other team picking it up. I mean, every team, right? That's not cheating. So it is what it is.
Listen, you're right, Justin. There's a question for you. If you see it over there,
I think the Blue Jays will beat Seattle. I think Seattle's the team to beat right now. Listen, I think that could go either way, and Seattle may, in fact, be the best option to kind of slow down these bats. But their lineup has just been so unbelievable that I see it hard to beat Toronto right now. But listen, if anybody's got the pitching, I think it's Seattle, and I think Seattle can knock them off, even though I'd give Toronto the slight edge right now and as the favorites in the American League. But can Seattle beat them? I think absolutely they can. If they get a couple good starts from guys like Gilbert and Castillo, I mean they absolutely can.
Definitely. All right, so let's make our picks for these series from what we've seen so far. Okay, let's go to the National League first. Cubs, Brewers. Justin, who do you pick?
I'll take the Brewers in 4. I do think the Cubs will win Game 3 at Wrigley, but I think the Brewers will be able to wrap it up in game number 4.
Okay, what about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to go 5. Either way, I think it's the Brewers. But yeah, Brewers in 4, maybe 5. Maybe the Cubs squeak them both out in Chicago, but I doubt it. I think 4 sounds good.
Yeah, I go. Listen, that's a trifecta. I go with the same thing. The Brewers in 4. All right. How about Dodgers, Phillies, Justin?
I'm gonna take the Dodgers, and I think the series is gonna go 5. With the lack of trust I have in the Dodger bullpen, I definitely could see the Phillies evening the series tonight, and that's gonna put them right back in position where. They just have to they'll have to just get a game at Dodger Stadium, and they're guaranteeing themselves a 5th game back at Citizens Bank Park. But I think the Dodgers are just slightly better. The Dodger players, the Dodger superstars seem more made for the moment. And listen, recency bias could be there because they just won the World Series a year ago. But, when push comes to shove, the Phillies players don't kind of seem there for the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, what are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to say this. If it goes back to Philly, I think the Phillies will take it. But I think if it stays 4 games, and that's my pick, I'm going to say Dodgers in 4. Only because of what we're saying. I think the Dodgers are in that playoff mode now, like we've seen last year, right? They looked once they got into that playoff mode, and these guys are proven guys. Like you just mentioned, the Phillies. They're just not, right? And again, they get streaky, and right now they're not streaky. Can they get hot tonight and ride that into LA? Sure, but you know what stops hot streaks like that is great starting pitching. And that's exactly what the Dodgers have.
That's right.
Their bullpen shaky, but I think Sasaki has shown that they got a weapon out there in the bullpen, right? He could come in and shut down, a big spot. So I'm going to say Dodgers in 4.
Yeah, and I'm going to say Dodgers in 5. I'm going to say that if they go back to Philadelphia, the Dodgers are going to make the Philly fans cry in that last game. So that's what I'm going to say. All right, American League.
That's what you're hoping. That's what you're hoping.
I know. That's what I'm hoping. Okay, Justin. Detroit, Seattle.
I'm gonna take the Mariners, and this is gonna go back to a 5th game as well. They split in Seattle, and I think they're going to go to Detroit, and they're going to split as well. But I think the Mariners at home, they just have the better pitching. The Tigers are another team that could be very streaky. I mean, look how bad their second half was. I mean, they blew a 15.5 game lead and fell to the wild, ended up tying for the division, but losing the tiebreaker, so they fell to the wild card. I don't see them being able to beat Seattle.
All right, Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. I don't trust the Tigers lineup. Yeah, they're pitching outside of Skubal, bullpen, same thing. The Mariners look like easily the better team. I thought it was going to be a sweep, to be honest, but it's not. Obviously, I'm going to say 4 games with Seattle winning. I know the Tigers are going back home and they should take 1 game, but I don't know. I think Seattle's going to. Their pitching is just going to shut them down. So
you know what? I'm going with you, Chris. I'm going for Seattle in 4 games. All right, let's now the Yankees. They're down 2 games already. But go ahead, Justin. Yankees, Blue Jays.
I think the Yankees are going to get game 3, but I think the Jays are going to take it in game 4. The Jays just look like the better team. And the Yankees have had their issues with guys, with their biggest players not showing up when it matters. I know people want to crush Judge, and Judge overall has had actually a pretty solid postseason, pretty solid against the Red Sox, and he's actually been pretty decent in this series. But I mean, you talk about the moment of the series. They're down 2-0, and the base is loaded.
Yep,
with nobody out, he strikes out. I mean, You want to talk about the epitome of 2 superstars doing 2 completely different things. Judge comes up with the bases loaded, nobody out, he strikes out, and they wouldn't have scored a run if it wasn't for the Bellinger walk.
Yeah.
Versus Guerrero comes up, bases loaded, nobody out, hits the ball 450 feet. So I mean, Toronto right now is just better. And I kind of do, and I do trust the pitching, especially if Bieber is pitching a little more at his older form. And I just don't. I don't see a pathway for the Yankees to win 3 straight, and I do think the Blue Jays end up taking care of it in game 4.
Okay, and Chris, go ahead. What do you got to say about it?
I think they'll win tomorrow, and I think they'll win game 4 behind Schlittler because he pitched so good, in his last start against Boston.
Yeah,
I just don't have any confidence that they'll win in Toronto in game 5. So I think Toronto in 5. I don't want that to happen. I hope I'm wrong.
I know
Yankees in 5, but I don't feel confident at all in Toronto. So I'm going to say Yankees in 5. Toronto in 5.
Okay, and I'm going with Justin. I'm saying Toronto in 4. But you never know. I think the Yankees win tomorrow night in Yankee Stadium. I think with the crowd and everything, it's going to be crazy. So I think they do win that. But we shall see. All right,
real quick. Blue Jays Yankees kind of feels like Phillies Mets in a way. It almost felt like even this year, it felt like Citi Field's in the heads of the Phillies.
Right.
It feels like Rogers Center is in their heads.
Yeah.
And the Mets last year in the NLDS started in Philadelphia. They were able to split by winning game 1. But then you saw the pressure get to them, and Citi Field really got into their heads, right? And the Mets were able to win games 3 and 4.
Right.
I kind of feel that way with the Yankees. Like the Rogers Center's in their heads right now.
And it's crazy. In previous years, it was the other way around. The Yankees always went up there, hit well. So right now they got to straighten it out. Obviously, Judge has to be the guy. I know he's got, the most hits in the postseason right now, but all singles, they mean nothing right now. He's got to get the big hit. He had the opportunity yesterday's game. He had the bases loaded situation. They were only down 2-0 at the time. Could have got a big hit there, didn't. So he's gotta wake this offense up. Him, Stanton, Bellinger, they all do.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The whole
collective unit.
Yeah.
Can't you on one guy. It's a collective unit.
Yeah, they have not been hitting good at all in this series. So they gotta shake out of it, or they're done. So
they definitely have to wake up. All right, let's get to one of the reasons Justin's here today. The New York Metropolitans. Justin, we didn't talk to you all season, so we didn't know what you were thinking. I mean, I kind of figure I know what you were thinking, but all right, let's get to it. What happened to the New York Mets?
Well, what happened was this team had absolutely no pitching. I mean, to get the fewest innings by far out of any team in Major League Baseball, the fewest innings by a starting pitcher. It really set the bullpen back. And, people originally were lauding David Stearns for the acquisitions at the deadline, like Gregory Soto and Ryan Helsley and Taylor Rogers. And actually Rogers was relatively good.
Yeah.
And Helsley finished the season pretty strong, but they didn't fail because they came to New York. They failed because they got overworked. And when you have Clay Holmes regularly bottoming out in the 4th inning and David Peterson falling off a cliff in the second half, and forgetting the all-star form that he showed in, when he came back from injury last year into the start of this year, Kodai Senga getting hurt and then coming back and being absolutely horrible, right? And not even major league caliber, and I don't even want to say they waited too long to call the kids up. I think they had a timeline on these pitchers, and I think the only one they called up, I think, in a regular timeline without rushing him was McLean. I think they rushed Sproat to the big leagues, and he responded relatively well. They rushed Jonah Tong to the big leagues, and it clearly looked like it because he's going to need seasoning in AAA next year. But they were forced to rely on those three guys, and looks like we got something with McLean. I think he's the one guy out of the three you can pencil into the rotation next season. But David Stearns really has to change his approach when it comes to pitching next year. The signings in the offseason, it's hard to kill him for the Minaya signing because I think we all lauded it at the time. Even though it didn't work out this year and he was dealing with the injuries, and I don't know how much the loose bodies really affected his pitching down the stretch, but nobody was happy about the 2-year deal for Montas, right? And now he's out for next year with the Tommy John surgery. So, I mean, he kind of struck out this offseason besides re-signing Pete Alonso and signing Juan Soto, which we all know were mostly Steve Cohen moves. So I think David Stearns has a lot to prove. I think both David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza are on notice now. And I was never in the fire Stearns or fire Mendoza camp this year because you don't just – what are we doing here? We can't just keep getting rid of guys after 2 years, right? It never works, right? Rojas was there for 2 years, even though he really didn't look like he knew what he was doing, right? Showalter, they pushed him out after 2023. So, I mean, let's not keep getting rid of guys after 2 years. I want to see 3-4 years and see how this actually builds out. And, we'll see how it goes next year. But, the seats are a little warmer for both. And I think they need to get off to a good start next year. But I think they need to seriously address the rotation. And how they're going to do it, listen, it might have to be by trade, and they're going to have to sign somebody of value, and not just a cheap little 1-year, $15 million deal trying to bargain, bargain basement hunt, and shop in Walmart for starting pitching. They really got to get somebody to lead the rotation, and that's really what it boggled down to. I mean, you had the Mets basically set franchise records for some of the best offensive numbers in the entire month of August. They were scoring like 6 or 7 runs a game, but they finished 11-17 that month. Why? Because their starting pitching bottomed out in the 3rd and 4th inning, and Mendoza's going to the bullpen. And and then I hear, oh, but Mendoza doesn't know how to manage a bullpen. Well, Mendoza doesn't know how to manage a bullpen because he doesn't know what options to go to when everybody he goes to fails. People want to blame him because it fails, but nobody wants to give him credit last year when he pushed all the same buttons and it worked. It's the players performing.
Yeah, it was Justin. It was an overworked bullpen. All right, it was an overworked bullpen.
Without a doubt.
And you're right. He made the deals he made in the offseason, except for Soto and re-signing Pete. I mean, me and Chris talked about it, right? Chris, Frankie Montas, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Right, Chris?
There was not one person who thought that was a good move.
Right. Healthy or not, the guy's just not a good pitcher.
First guess now, there's not one person who thought that was a good move.
No one. And why did he think he was going to catch lightning in a bottle again? This time with Montas.
He thought he was Luis Severino 2.0. That's what it was.
Why not just re-sign like Quintana? They could have gotten him for like nothing, just to be a back end of the rotation guy.
And you forget Quintana didn't sign until mid-March.
Right.
Yeah.
He stayed a free agent. So even with the injury, so actually Montas had gone down. Minaya had already gone down.
Yeah.
Like at that point, Quintana was still available.
Right.
As a free agent. And
Could've got him
he
for
could have
nothing.
signed him to a $3 or $4 million. At that point, probably would have been a $3-4 million
I think
deal.
that's all he signed
To bring
for.
him in. And was Quintana the best starter? No. But guess what he did? He would give you 6 innings every start.
Right.
It might be 3 or 4 runs, but guess what? He pitched innings, and he was always an innings eater for this team.
And that's what they needed. But the other problem was center field also. Signing Siri, and then he breaks his leg. And you could, even if he didn't break his leg, did you really think that now a center field of Siri and Taylor were going to bring you to the postseason?
Yeah.
I mean,
I never had a big problem with Tyrone Taylor. I actually think Tyrone Taylor was an okay player. But bringing in Jose Siri was another mistake. That was a bad trade.
Could have re-signed Bader. Another one, just simple.
You could have re-signed Bader, sure. And you knew you were going to need some, and then you were going to need somebody behind Tyrone Taylor. And that ended up turning into be McNeil half the season in center field.
Yep.
And he's not a center fielder. Now, God bless him. He tried, and he actually played a decent center field. But like, you can't just now you're throwing a guy out there who's got no innings. Yeah, center field, right? No major league innings in center field.
Either way, you also had guys that shouldn't be playing every day, right? Whether it's Taylor, I think McNeil's not an everyday player anymore, right?
Probably not.
Unfortunately, the catching position. All right, Alvarez got hurt, but now you had other guys playing, more than they should have. They were okay, but they're not guys that are everyday everyday position players. So that's what hurt. I mean, you can't really.
The only guy who kind of worked his way to the conversation where you're kind of comfortable with him every day was Luis Torrens. Torrens is terrific behind the plate, and they'll be more than comfortable going into the 2026 season with a tandem of Alvarez and Torrens, because Torrens behind the plate is fantastic. He throws almost every other runner out.
Right. Alvarez just has to get going offensively.
And he has to not get hurt.
He's got to hit, because the kind of offense that Torrens provides is you could live with that kind of offense when he plays that kind of defense behind the plate.
Yeah.
So Alvarez has to be on notice, or they're going to have to construct the roster to carry 3 catchers next year, and let Alvarez's bat get going at DH. Well, because they're going to have a whole DH next year. Who's going to be the everyday DH? I personally think they're going to trade Mark Vientos this offseason. For what, I don't know, but I think they're going to move Mark Vientos and roll with Brett Beatty going forward, which I would do, because I like the growth Brett Beatty has made, both defensively at third base, and he finished the season very strong. He was one of the few hitters, besides Soto. Alonso was actually pretty streaky in the second half, but Soto was reliable. And then behind that, it was pretty much Brett Beatty. Everybody else was way too inconsistent.
I tell you,
Nimmo has ups and downs. Yeah. Lindor fell off the map for a while until September, when he kind of got it going again. But Brett Beatty was the second most consistent hitter behind Juan Soto.
With the DH spot open, it's a perfect spot to sign Alonso, because he could play first. You could DH him, kind of mix and match there.
You have to wonder if he wants that, though. You have to wonder if he wants to just be a first baseman every day and not flip back and forth.
But Alonso has to realize he can't be a first baseman every day anymore.
No. And I'm actually kind of at the point where I'm 50-50, where I'm kind of okay with moving on from him. Now, I need to know.
Like that. Rob wants him back.
Well, I need to know how we're replacing that.
Right, exactly.
If you're telling me we have an alternative option at first base, let's just, for argument's sake, we're going to spend that Pete Alonso money on Alex Bregman. Now that's different. If we're going to use that Pete Alonso money and put Bregman at third base, you move Beatty to second base where he got comfortable. And now you do have to worry about first base, right? You have Ryan Clifford in the minor leagues. That could be a scenario where you keep Vientos, but I wouldn't trust Vientos at first base.
I don't.
So there's no real alternative option at first base. I mean, Pete Alonso is the best option going forward at first base. And ultimately, I think that's what they end up doing. I do think they keep Pete. But that's an alternative path I could see if Pete chooses to leave for maybe more dollars, or because the Mets are saying to him, well, we want you to be a part-time DH. And that might just be the nature of it.
Yeah, but I want to see Pete come back because, like, number one, besides, I would like to see him be a Met for life. How are you going to, like you said, how are you going to fill that hole, right? Plus, we know,
too.
Yeah, we know he loves playing here. Okay, we've had Mickey Callaway on the show a bunch of times, and Chris, what does Mickey say about Pete? Pete loves playing in New York. He loves being a Met, and they just have to pay him. And I think Cohen, it's up to Cohen. We know that.
I think Alonso.
Not everybody loves playing here, right? We've learned that.
And listen, I think Alonso is the only player that's going to be a Steve Cohen decision. I think it'll be a Steve Cohen decision this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, like you said, you guys have had Mickey Callaway on. Who knows better firsthand than the guy who managed him his rookie year, right? He was in that dugout. He was there every day. He knows Pete. And listen, I think in the end, I think if it's up to Pete, I think Pete stays. I think he loves New York that much.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of accepting what could be a potential alternative should he go elsewhere, because the Mets do need to be ready for that.
I'll give you guys three names. First basemen, free agents this year. Okay. Number one, what about Josh Naylor?
Go ahead, Justin.
It's not a bad name. I mean, if you're pairing that with potentially Alex Bregman, okay, we might be working with something different here. Because now where are you replacing the 38 home runs and almost 130 RBIs that he had this year? Right? Bregman could probably drive in 100, right? In the middle of that lineup, probably batting behind Soto.
Yeah.
So you're getting 100 RBIs. Naylor's good for probably 30 bombs because he's an all or nothing kind of power hitter.
Yeah.
I would have to see another great player added somewhere else in order to be comfortable. Like, if you're telling me if Pete Alonso's come back, then I'm okay with them. They can't spend $30 million at every position, right? They just can't, right? And Pete's going to command 30 to 35 million per year. And Bregman's probably looking to cash in too after the year he had in Boston.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And those are probably the two biggest free agents out there.
He wasn't great though after he came back from that injury.
Yeah, you're right.
So that might affect his free agency. I don't think he's getting. Let's be honest. I don't think he's getting $40 million a year, Bregman.
No, I don't. No.
But
what other name you got, Chris?
Another guy who he does have a club options. I don't know if he's going to be a free agent though. Is Max Muncy.
I could see, but at first base. You want to put him at third base. Okay.
I don't know. He's getting up there in age.
But I also wouldn't do that because I would trust Beatty more defensively. I would not. I think he'll stay with the Dodgers.
Yeah. The only other guy out of the free agents that are here would be maybe Ryan O'Hearn.
Too all or nothing for me.
Yeah.
He's another guy you're getting a low batting average.
When you got to think about
30 home runs out of.
Yeah, it's just a thought when you got to replace if you're going to replace Alonso.
And you're absolutely right, Chris. Hopefully
that could be in a trade too somewhere.
Hopefully that doesn't happen. All right, Justin, because we got about 12 minutes left, so I wanted to ask you about Soto. Okay, Soto ended up having a great year, right? Everyone was going nuts in the beginning of the year. He doesn't want to be here. He's not happy. That first game he played at the Yankee Stadium, he did look shell-shocked. But after that, everything was fine. So why don't you give me your thoughts about Soto's year? I
mean, if we're not putting it mildly, it's one of the best offensive years of Mets history. I mean, only Pete Alonso has hit more home runs, and he did that twice by hitting 46 a few years back, and then 53 his rookie year. I mean, other than that, no other person in Met history has hit more home runs than Soto, right? And he went from a guy, thanks to Antoine Richardson, the first base coach, who was one of the few coaches that actually is returning to the 2026 staff. This guy had never had more than 12 steals in a season, ends up stealing 38 bases, almost has a 40-40 year. And you see his power go up every single year. In 2023 with San Diego, he had 35. Last year with the Yankees, it's 41, which was a career high. He breaks that again by hitting 43. And here's a 26-year-old player, going to be 27 next season, in the prime of his career. I mean, we're witnessing a generational player, like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of player. And, yeah, it started out pretty shaky. It started out pretty slow. I don't think any of that was unexpected. It is an adjustment being in a new clubhouse. And you know what? He's on his third team in 3 different years, right?
Yes,
and
right.
Think about a player of this caliber having been traded twice, being from the Nationals to the Padres and to the Padres to the Yankees last offseason. I think there was a little unsettlement, but I think as the season went on, I think he finally relaxed his mind. He's like, I'm finally in a spot where I know I'm not going anywhere. Like, he's never had to worry about that. He's never had the ability to just settle in and say, this is where I am.
Yeah.
Sans maybe his first couple of years in Washington as a rookie and a young player, but once year 3 happens and the Nationals are, coming off the World Series his rookie year and they start to go down a little bit, it's like, all right, the Nationals are offering me this contract of like $300-400 million. We think we're above that. And then the Nationals like, I can't really afford that. Once they knew that he couldn't match his number, 2022 happens and he gets traded to San Diego. Then unfortunately, the owner unfortunately passes away a few years back. The Padres owner.
Yes.
And now they're in a financial bind, right? It seems like things weren't always – they kind of strapped themselves financially. So now I don't even know if they ever offered him a long-term contract. It just got to the point where, okay, he's a year for free agency. We got to capitalize. And that's when they traded him to the Yankees. And the whole year with New York, you knew maybe he could come back to the Yankees. But he knew going into that season he was going to be a free agent regardless, whether he signed with the Yankees, back with the Yankees or not. He was going to that season. It's a 1-year deal. Now he finally has that long-term security and comfortability that this is where he is. And I think once June came around, he kind of relaxed himself. And that's when you saw the real Juan Soto start to come out. So I think it was a great year.
It was a great year. Chris has to admit it too, right? Chris was done with Soto, right, in the World Series when he turned the cap around, right, Chris?
Yeah, no, I give him credit for that. And you know what? He made the right decision for himself. It came down to, the Mets are just offering a little bit more than the Yankees, right? That's what it came down to.
Yeah,
right? The money was close, right? But you got one less year with the Mets, but the money was about the same, but he got all the extra stuff. And hey, he picked it. That was good for him,
And that's it.
I was saying it from the beginning, Rob. We both were. Like, Soto's going to be Soto. Like, he's going to be fine. He's not like if people were saying he was sad about signing there, and it was so stupid. I mean, the guy, he just signed the largest contract, right, in North America.
I don't think he regrets it one bit.
Right, he's totally fine. Trust me, as you can see, he's totally fine. So it doesn't matter. So
it does.
Making my word, he thinks Jay's Phillies.
I know he does. I don't know about that, TVK.
Yeah.
We'll see. But all right, we're getting towards the end of the show, and Chris, you have your questions that you want to ask.
Justin, we always ask the same question to our guests at the end. If you were named MLB commissioner, what changes would you make to the game?
First of all, I'd get rid of the tiebreaker. We're bringing game 163 back. I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen how the Mets would have managed 27 outs in Cincinnati on Monday. That would have worked out.
I agree with
That would
that.
have been a fun game. I have to say, that would have been a fun game.
It would have been like Sunday. He would have pulled Manai after an inning and a third or whatever it was. I would have loved to see how Mendoza would have managed game 163 with absolutely no pitching staff. So I would have got rid of the tiebreaker. Actually, that would have been game 163 for the division for the Yankees and Jays, if we're being honest. And then the Yankees could have ended up with best record if they won that game.
Yeah, it would have been in Toronto though, right? So probably not.
Yeah, what I would have done if there's a tiebreaker, I would take head to head, and like the Met game would have been in Cincinnati because the Reds won head to head, the Jays won head to head against the Yankees. That would have been Toronto. So I do that, and I'd get rid of this freaking runner on second in extra innings. I know they want to end the game in the 10th or 11th. There was one game. Didn't the Mets get to like the 14th one game and end up losing because they couldn't score for like 5 freaking innings?
Yeah,
it was in the bottom of the 14th. They lost the game.
Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah, that's like our number one answer. I mean, even everyone, we had Ed Lynch on, he said that, Mickey said it. Every guest says that. But besides that, what else? Like, is there anything else you would do besides, because that's the main one. Nobody wants that ghost runner.
Well, my answer up until last week would have been the ABS system, but guess what? That's coming. So I'm happy about that. I mean, God, one of the games, I think it might have been, it was either Machado or Bogarts at the plate. The ball was literally a foot outside, and the umpire rings him up on it. I mean, some of these ball strike calls are just horrendous.
Awful.
We've seen some bad umpiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the Padres players with the umpires after the game? Did you see that video?
Yeah, because the umpires had to come down through the tunnel, down to the dugout steps of the tunnel. Yeah, they're pretty heated, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but see, Mickey told us, right, Chris, that stuff happens more than you know because you usually don't see it. He says he's seen. What did he say, Chris? He's seen players chase umpires.
Oh yeah, I couldn't imagine, right? The stuff that we don't see on the field. I mean, that was just a horrible scene.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, because listen, it cost them the game, right? It was such an awful call. But what are you going to do?
Game would have been ball 4.
And what happens? Listen, what happens if San Diego was out of challenges? Even if they had the challenge system. What if they were out of challenges at that point, right? It would have been even worse. So,
I think you're getting 2 of them a game, I think.
Yeah. I love the challenge system too. I'm with you. I don't think anybody is not,
No, you have to. You get 2, the pitcher, the catcher could call it. So it's gonna, I'm glad. We've been talking about it all year. All right, so that was good. Justin, listen, we had a lot of fun having you on. We hope you come back on again.
Yeah, great to have you.
Right, Chris?
Yeah, man. It was great to talk to you again. We used to talk every Friday night. We used to be the 3 of us, and sometimes a couple other guys too. But we used to have our Friday night chats all the time. So it was definitely come on again, man. It was great to see you again, and congratulations again on the wedding, man.
Yes, congratulations.
God bless.
All right, we got let's see. Let me just talk about the upcoming stuff. We have the contest going on. Look on X for more. I'm going to put pictures of that stuff up. Chris, what time's the football show tomorrow? I said it.
I think normal time, 7:00.
All right, 7:00. You gotta get through that in an hour, Chris.
Yeah. Justin, if you want to join us too at 7:00 tomorrow. For football.
Oh, that's another dandy of a franchise, the freaking Jets.
Yeah,
that's a whole other show. Let's not get into that. Trust me, I know.
All right, so we have that tonight. I'm going to be on 108 Stitches, South Florida Tribune at like 8:45 with Mickey Callaway and Eric Katz and Scott and the rest of the gang. So I'll be on tonight, and Friday night we'll be on at 10 p.m. We don't know who the guest is yet. We're working on stuff. So, we'll have clips and previews and all kinds of stuff during the week, our updates, and we're going to have an extra inning. We're going to do all that stuff. But thanks a lot, Justin. A lot of fun. We'll see everybody during the week on the clips and Friday night. Have a good one.